They insulted my sick son, so I canceled their mortgage payments, their car loan, and every one of their credit cards. I stood quietly in the hallway of my childhood home, my gaze drifting across the wall cluttered with framed photos. My sister's college graduation, her wedding, the day she brought her newborn home. In every image, my parents glowed with joy, pride radiating from their expressions. But nowhere was there, even a glimpse of my milestones. That familiar tightness gripped my chest. After 35 years, you'd think I'd be numb to it. I wasn't. From the kitchen, I heard my mother's voice float through the air. "Melissa, is that you? Come help me with these dishes." I stood still. I hadn't come back to this house to scrub plates. I had come to draw a line. Stepping into the kitchen, I found my mother arranging a tray of hors d'oeuvres in a rush. Another celebration. Margaret's, of course. She'd just been promoted to department manager at a regional bank, a role she landed thanks to one of Dad's longtime business contacts. "Can you finish this? I have to go change," she said, already drying her hands on a dish towel. "Your father picked up the wrong crackers. Margaret likes sesame, not plain." I gave a small nod and stepped up to take her place at the counter. Same scenario, just a different day. My phone buzzed, a message from Emily, my ex-sister-in-law. "Did you tell them yet?" I hadn't. How do you even start that kind of conversation? How do you tell your parents that after years of silently footing their bills, you're done? That you're cutting them off, cold? How do you say that their only grandson didn't even include them in his family tree project? The front door slammed shut behind me, followed by heavy footsteps. "Melissa," my father said, barely glancing at me. "Where's your mother? Margaret will be here any minute. She's getting ready." He nodded once and disappeared into the living room without another word. I methodically placed the crackers on the tray, my movements automatic. I'd stood in this same kitchen more times than I could count, aching for a nod, a word, some sliver of recognition that never came. A full-ride scholarship to Northwestern, my promotion to senior financial analyst, the birth of my son Lucas, none of it ever mattered. Margaret had always been the miracle child. Born after a string of miscarriages, she was their blessing, their long-awaited prize. I was the prototype, the rough draft, and for all my accomplishments, I had spent my life trying to earn what she had been handed without effort. Their affection, their attention, their pride. When my husband Noah left me 3 years ago, for a colleague no less, I thought my parents might finally step up. I was a single mother now. Surely, they'd come through. Instead, they interrogated me. Was I too career-focused? Had I let the marriage fall apart by not fulfilling my role as a wife? It wasn't them who showed up. It was Noah's parents, Emily and Ron, who stood by me. No longer legally my in-laws, but still very much my real family. They picked Lucas up from school when I had late meetings, kept him overnight when work trips came up, showered him with affection and stability. Meanwhile, my own parents, distracted, busy, until 6 months ago. That sudden shift in their behavior had almost fooled me. Weekly phone calls, Sunday dinner invitations, offers to babysit. I wanted to believe it meant something, that maybe finally, they were showing up. Then Margaret got promoted. And suddenly it all made sense. They didn't change, they just needed money. My mother walked back into the kitchen, now in a fresh blouse I had bought for her last month. "Did you finish the appetizers? Margaret will be here any second." I gave her a nod and slid the tray in her direction. "We need to talk," I said. Her smile faltered. Apprehension settled in. "Can it wait until after the party?" It could have, but it wouldn't. "I'm ending all financial support," I said. My voice was steadier than I expected. Her expression drained of color. What financial support? As if she had no clue. As if I hadn't been paying off their car loan for 5 years. As if I hadn't covered the roof replacement, property taxes, and their vacation to Maui. Every last dime. My hands shook, but I anchored them on the counter. The car payments, the credit cards, the homeowner's insurance, everything. Her jaw opened, then snapped shut again. She blinked in disbelief. "Why would you do that? After everything we've done for you?" A hollow laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "Really? What exactly have you done for me? We raised you. We gave you food to eat. The basics. the bare minimum. She was trying to act like parenting me was some kind of selfless gift. When Noah left, who helped me? When Lucas needed weekly medical appointments, who drove him? When I got promoted, who even acknowledged it? Not them, never them. My father appeared in the doorway, frowning. What's going on? My mother turned toward him, already shifting into victim mode. Alyssa says she's cutting us off, financially. After everything we've done. He scowled. This is about that thing, isn't it? We told you, it's about everything. I cut in. It's about Lucas calling Emily grandma, because she actually acts like one. About you skipping his birthday party to go to Margaret's lake house. About me being in the ER, and you refusing to pick up your own grandson, because Margaret had a dinner. 3 weeks ago, I had been doubled over in pain, barely able to speak. Appendicitis. I was rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. In the haze of pain, my only concern had been Lucas. He was at aftercare, waiting for someone to pick him up. Of course I called my parents first. We're at Margaret's celebration dinner. My mother had said, exasperated, can't his father get him? Noah was out of state. I could barely explain that. Well, we can't leave now. Margaret would be crushed. Then she added, without a hint of shame, he's just so much work sometimes. A burden. A burden. That's what they called their grandson. Emily answered my second call on the first ring. She didn't hesitate. She picked up Lucas, stayed with him overnight at the hospital, even rearranged waiting room chairs to form a makeshift bed. That night I understood the difference between obligation and love, between shared DNA and chosen family. You're being dramatic, my father said now. We couldn't just leave. You know how much that night meant to Margaret. More than their terrified grandson. More than their daughter, who almost collapsed from a ruptured appendix. I'm done, I said, voice low but resolute. No more money, no more pretending. You don't get to treat me like an ATM when it's convenient, then ignore me when it's not. My mother's face crumpled, not in guilt, but calculation. But your dad's medication, and the car note is due this week. Margaret's new paycheck could cover it. Or maybe it was time to dip into their retirement fund, the one they refused to touch, while I had been covering their lifestyle. Not my problem. The front door opened. I brought champagne. Margaret called out cheerfully, time to go. I grabbed my purse from the counter. Melissa, wait. Mother said, panic rising in her voice. You can't do this to us. But I could, and I was. I passed Margaret in the hallway, catching her surprised expression. Melissa, I didn't know you were coming. I wasn't, I said. I just stopped by to withdraw my final investment. Thanks, I guess, she said. You're heading out already? I nodded once. No more words left in me. Let them explain. Let them deal with the fallout. The drive home was strangely peaceful, like wading through mist. My eyes burned, but not from sadness, from release. The weight I'd carried for so long, years of hoping, giving and trying, was gone. Lucas was still at Emily's. She'd sent a picture earlier, him covered in flour, joy painted all over his face. That was love, messy, unconditional, real. Family isn't blood, family is who shows up. 3 months slipped by without a single word. No calls, no guilt-laced voicemails, no unexpected visits, just silence. Then one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, my phone lit up. Mom. My thumb hovered over the red decline button. I should have pressed it, but instead I let curiosity win. Melissa, she said, her voice stiff, each syllable deliberate and clipped. We need to talk about this situation. The situation, of course, being the financial spiral they were now caught in without my support. There's nothing left to talk about, I replied flatly. There was a pause on her end, and then her tone shifted, colder now with a bitter edge. Margaret refuses to help, says we need to figure things out ourselves. The anger in her voice was unmistakable. The car was repossessed yesterday. The mortgage is 2 months behind. A flicker of something passed through me. Not guilt, but an old echo of responsibility. The remnants of being conditioned to carry their weight. I pushed it down. I'm sorry to hear that, I said calmly. And I was, to a small degree, sorry that it had come to this, that they'd pushed me away so thoroughly and still didn't see it. You can't just leave us like this, she hissed. We're your parents. They were biologically. but in every way that mattered, nurturing, emotional support, presence, they had never filled the role. I need to go. Lucas has soccer practice. Melissa, don't. I ended the call before she could finish. Then I blocked her number. Across the room, Lucas sat at the dining table, deeply focused. Markers and colored pencils surrounded him as he worked on his school project, his family tree. I walked over and leaned in. How's it coming along, kiddo? He looked up with a proud smile and pointed to the top of the paper. There he had drawn Emily and Ron, my former in-laws, clearly labeled Grandma and Grandpa. Below them my name and Noah's, and at the bottom his own. That was it. No Margaret, no mention of my parents. I crouched next to him, keeping my voice gentle. Is this everyone in our family? He nodded, eyes full of certainty. These are the people who love us. So simple, so honest, and completely true. That night after Lucas had gone to bed, I sat outside on the back porch with a glass of wine. A light breeze stirred the leaves, and the sky above was soft with stars. I thought about what kind of legacy we pass on. Not money, not possessions, but emotional beliefs, quiet expectations, unspoken truths. I had spent most of my life internalizing the belief that love was something earned, that being useful made me worthy, that a child owed her parents, and love was conditional on performance. That's what they taught me. But Lucas would inherit something else. He would know that love wasn't a transaction, that family didn't need to share blood, only care, that the ones who show up time and again are the ones who count. My phone buzzed beside me. A message from Emily. Ron's making his famous chili on Sunday. You and Lucas in. A small smile crept across my face. My thumbs moved before I could even think about it. Wouldn't miss it. This was my inheritance now. Not shame, not debt, not obligation, but choice, connection, love freely given and freely received. For the first time in my life, I felt whole, rooted, abundant in all the ways that truly mattered. Looking back now, I can see the pattern with crystal clarity, the exhausting pursuit, the unrelenting efforts, the desperate yearning for even the smallest gesture of acknowledgement. My self-worth had been quietly wrapped around their validation, or more accurately, their lack of it. Every milestone I reached was, in its own way, a plea. Notice me. Care. Be proud. The walls of my childhood bedroom had once been covered in certificates, ribbons, and trophies. Spelling bees, math competitions, science fairs. They gathered dust, largely ignored, while my parents clapped at every one of Margaret's soccer games, sat in the front row at her dance recitals, and proudly hosted family dinners after even her most routine school awards ceremonies. When I got accepted to Northwestern with a full scholarship, I thought surely that would impress them. My father barely glanced at the letter. Chicago? That's too far. And who's going to help your mother around the house? Not Margaret, of course. She was always too fragile, too special. She existed in a protective bubble they had wrapped around her since birth. I left anyway. I worked 2 jobs to get through grad school, built a career in finance, and eventually landed a role where I didn't need anyone's help. Then I met Noah, confident, charismatic, with that easy smile and a voice that could silence a room. He made me feel important, noticed. His family welcomed me from day one. Weekend barbecues, where I was genuinely listened to. Holidays where I had a seat that mattered. His mom, Emily, would call just to say hi. His dad, Ron, taught me how to check my oil, patch a tire. It felt strange at first, this easy kindness. When Noah and I got married, my parents found fault in everything. The venue, the timing, the menu. Even Margaret, who stood beside me as my maid of honor, looked detached through the whole ceremony. They left early, saying Margaret had a dentist appointment the next morning. But Emily and Ron, they stayed to the very end, helped clean up, held me like a daughter. When Lucas was born, I hoped things might change. First grandchild. A fresh start. They visited once, stayed for less than an hour. My mother held Lucas awkwardly, like she was afraid he might cry on her. He looks like Noah, she said, and handed him back. As if that explained her detachment. Emily and Ron were different. They brought homemade casseroles, volunteered to take overnight shifts so I could rest, rocked Lucas to sleep when my arms gave out. They were there. Then came the collapse. Noah ended our marriage over a text. Not even the decency of a conversation, just a message. It was Emily who found me sobbing on the bathroom floor. Lucas still napping in his crib. She packed us both a bag, took us into her home. My parents called once. My mother's tone had carried a chilling smugness. Men don't stick around when you put work first. I warned you, as if I deserved it, as if my ambition had doomed me. Noah fought me over assets, but didn't want custody. He wanted freedom, not responsibility. Emily and Ron were stuck in the middle, torn between their son and their disappointment in him. You're still family, Ron told me gently. That doesn't change. Lucas is our grandson. You're his mother. That's all that matters. Simple for them, unfathomable for my parents. Eventually, the bills stacked up. Between court costs, work stress, and single parenthood, I caved. I called my parents. Just temporary help, I told myself. My father wrote a small check, with a warning. Don't expect this again. We're not a bank. But when their car broke down the next month, they called me immediately. Can you help? Just this once. Just once became twice. Then monthly. Then constant. I funded their car repairs, their vacations, the new roof, property taxes, a cruise. Every time I told myself, maybe this would earn their love. Maybe this would make me worthy. But it never did. Their attention lasted just long enough to get what they needed. Until the emergency. Until the moment they said, he's such a burden, that broke something inside me. That sentence, that sentiment, snapped the final thread holding me to them. Lucas, my kind, bright, sensitive boy, was not a burden. He was the best part of my life, and anyone who saw him as anything less had no place in our world. I finally saw what had always been true. It was never love. It was an exchange, a transaction, and I had been paying for their attention, never receiving their affection. That realization shattered something, but in the cracks, something new took root. Freedom. I didn't need to prove anything anymore, because I already had everything I needed. Lucas, Emily and Ron, friends who cared, colleagues who respected me, a chosen family, built from love. A week after I walked out of their house, my phone rang. Margaret, we hardly ever spoke, maybe twice a year, if that, polite, surface level, uncomfortable. What did you say to Mom and Dad? Her voice was sharp, accusatory. They're spiraling over the money. I told them no more financial support. I said plainly, no more enabling. They have their golden child now. Time for her to shine. There was silence, heavy, loaded silence. They think you're being cruel, she said finally. That this is revenge. I let the words hang. Was it cruel to stop depleting myself for people who only ever took? Was it revenge to finally protect myself? I'm not punishing them, I said. I'm just done pretending. Another pause, then a sigh. They're never going to change. You know that, right? They've always been like this. It was the first honest thing we'd said to each other in years. I know, I told her, but I have. There was another pause, a beat of something that almost sounded like empathy. Good for you. Two simple words, but sincere, and maybe for once real. After we hung up, I sat with the silence. I thought about Margaret, about her life, about what it meant to be the favorite, the one who could do no wrong. Had it come with its own weight? Had she ever felt suffocated by the pedestal? It didn't excuse the way she'd looked away while I was pushed to the margins, but it helped me understand. We were both cast in roles before we even had a say. She was the miracle, I was the afterthought. But now, months after cutting the cord, financial and emotional, I was beginning to understand what real freedom tasted like. Not just freedom from obligation, but from the need for approval. I had never needed their validation. I had always been enough. They had just never seen it. Mom, Grandma Emily says she's making spaghetti tonight. Can we go now? Lucas's voice rang from the hallway, breaking me from my thoughts. I turned to find him grinning, already halfway into his sneakers. Grandma Emily, he said it so naturally, like it had always been her title. And maybe, in all the ways that mattered, it had been a title earned, not inherited. Of course, buddy, I said, smiling. Grab your jacket. He darted down the hall, humming some tune under his breath. As I followed him, a deep wave of gratitude washed over me. For him, for our little life, for the peace I had fought so hard to create, for the people who stayed when others didn't. That evening, as we drove to Emily and Ron's place, Lucas chatted non-stop in the back seat about soccer drills and spelling tests. I let his voice fill the car, the warmth of it curling around me like a blanket, and I thought about what this journey had taught me. Pain, yes, plenty of it, but also clarity. For too long, I had lived with the ache of being overlooked, of stretching myself thin just to earn a sliver of affection that never came. My worth had been tied to their approval that always felt just out of reach, but not anymore. Now, I understood the difference between family by default and family by choice, between people who claimed the title and those who lived it. My parents had taught me, by their absence and selfishness, exactly what kind of mother I would not be. And in a strange way, I was thankful, because their failure lit the path towards something better. At Emily and Ron's, Lucas barreled through the front door, greeted by the smell of garlic and tomato sauce. Emily pulled him into a hug, her apron dusted with flour. Ron looked up from the stove, beaming, "There's my guy, hope you brought your appetite." Lucas grinned wide, "I'm starving." I stepped inside, the warmth of the home wrapping around me. Laughter echoed from the kitchen. A dog barked in the backyard. It was simple, it was joyful, it was enough. Later that night, after Lucas had gone to bed and the dishes were done, I stood by the window with a mug of tea. Emily joined me, setting her hand gently on my shoulder. "You okay?" she asked softly. I nodded. Better than I've been in years. She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. Sometimes, being seen doesn't require words, just presence. Driving home, Lucas fell asleep in the back seat, his head tilted, mouth slightly open, arms curled around the stuffed dog Emily had kept from Noah's childhood. I glanced at him in the rearview mirror, heart swelling with something deeper than love, pride, security, hope. This was the life I had built. Not perfect, not easy, but ours. And as I pulled into the driveway and carried Lucas to bed, I felt it settle inside me, an unwavering truth. I was not who they said I was. I was more. I was a mother who showed up. I was a woman who broke the cycle. I was enough. In the stillness of the house, I poured myself one last glass of wine and stepped out onto the porch. The night was quiet. A cool breeze kissed my skin. The stars above blinked gently as if watching over me. I sat there reflecting on everything. The years of striving, of stretching, of giving too much in the hopes of finally being chosen. It was strange how clearly I could see it now. The way every achievement had been an attempt to fill a hole their indifference had left behind. Their love had always been conditional, calculated, selective, but mine wouldn't be. Lucas would grow up knowing a love that didn't need to be earned. He would never have to question if he was enough. My parents had inherited their own scars, passed down beliefs wrapped in guilt and duty. They thought love was something you had to earn, that children owed their parents simply for being born, but not me, not Lucas. The cycle ended here. He would inherit something else, something better. The truth that love is not a debt to repay, that family is not defined by obligation, that being present, being consistent, being kind, that is what matters. My phone buzzed beside me. Another message from Emily. "Don't forget Lucas has his sleepover here on Friday. I'll send photos." I smiled, my chest warm with quiet joy. This was my legacy now. Not a list of unpaid bills or invisible expectations, but a life filled with people who chose each other every day. I looked around at the home I built on my own, at the porch that had once felt too big, too empty. Now it felt just right. For the first time, I wasn't chasing love. I was living it. And not because I had something to prove, but because I finally knew the truth. I was worthy, just as I was. No performance, no payment, no more begging to be seen. Only peace, only love, only the kind of family that shows up not out of duty, but out of heart.